seated so the counters can take your vote.
On this side.
12 on the left side.
Mr. Moderator, the left side is 17.
Your left side, my right side. 17. $29 in center.
What was the number?
29. All those that are opposed to this motion, please raise your card.
Mr. Moderator, the left side is 23.
The left side is 23.
This left side is 21.
The right side is 20, the left side is 20.
Only 2 is set.
Yes. 86 no. I declare the motion has been defeated.
Don't leave. And if you do leave, you have to take the bag lunch with you when you go.
56 yes, 86
We're returning to Article 26.
I move that the town appropriate $4 million to pay costs of repairing local roads in accordance with the town's pavement management plan dated March 2016, as the same may be amended or updated, including payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7.5 or 7.6 of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project, provided, however, that no amounts shall be borrowed or expended hereunder unless the town shall have voted to exclude the amount necessary to repay any such borrowing from the property tax limitation provisions of Chapter 59, Section 21C of the general laws, Proposition 2.5.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
The Board of Selectmen recommends approval for the fund.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Thank you. Tell us about the article.
I would refer to the town manager.
Ms. LaFleur. This is roads, almost as much passion as water.
Thank you, and thank you for remaining at town meeting. I'm very excited to be able to talk to you this afternoon about the pavement management plan that we've been able to put together. I mentioned during the budget presentation that we have a proposal to put forward to town meeting, and we hope that you will like it as much as we do. So we put together a pavement management plan back in 2009, and we updated it last summer in 2015. The reason we have this is the plan is a system which provides an objective way of programming roadway improvements with the goal of maximizing available resources and extending the life of the pavement management system. The plan establishes a baseline condition of roadways, which is used to determine a prioritized list of recommendations. And the original plan had two components. We calculated a pavement defect value and we weighed that against the classification of the road. So we classify roads in one of 4 or 5 ways, depending on how you look at it. Main roads, which typically contain high traffic volumes, and they either permit traffic flow from one main to another, or they act as connectors within the town. An example of a main road is Lancaster Avenue. The second category of roads are called secondary roads, and they typically contain higher traffic volumes than a collector or a local road, but less than a main road. And an example of a secondary road is Sunny Hill Road. Then we have collector roads. These typically contain lower traffic volumes than either the mains or the secondaries, and they permit traffic flow between main and secondary roads. And an example of a road in this category is Hollis Road. And then we have local roads, and we break those in between 2 categories, either over 1,000 feet or under 1,000 feet. These typically contain the lowest traffic volumes of all roads and permit traffic flow from any of the above roads to residential subdivisions or act as a connector between subdivisions. And I put up 2 examples, Broad Meadow Drive and Windermere Drive. So when we looked at the defect category, we look at different types of defects. Or when we created the defect category, we look at different types of defects that you typically see within roads. These are, the pictures are examples of what you might see. Longitudinal cracks, utility cuts, raveling, shoveling, pushing, where trench work is done, potholes, rutting, and alligator cracks. So the original plan that we put together back in 2009, as I mentioned, looked at the classification and the type of defect, and we determined the priority order with those 2 variables. This data was used as a basis for the funding decisions we made for our pavement management plan in fiscal years 10 through 15. And in these years, we had varying degrees of funding. We were looking at, our sources of funding were Chapter 90, which is aid that we received from the state, which has ranged between $320 to a high in fiscal 15 of $630,000. Typically, we receive about $420,000. We did receive some additional aid from the state in 14 and 15. And then our operating budget. And we've made a concerted effort to increase the appropriation within the operating budget to address pavement management needs, but we're not able to, given all of the budgetary constraints, be able to set aside enough money on an annual basis to take care of all of our needs. So between fiscal 10 and calendar 16, this is a listing of all of the work that we've done in this time. A significant amount of work, but certainly not all of the work that we would like to do if we had an appropriate level of funding. So we looked at coming up with a different plan, revising the original plan, which we did last summer, starting last summer. We did a re-inspection of all of the roadways that were first inspected in 2009. And based on this re-inspection data, we calculated what we call a pavement condition index. And this index expresses the relative condition of each roadway on a scale of
0, with 0 being the worst, to 100, 100 being the best. In this PCI, we apply to our original methodology to come up with what we think is a more realistic approach to how we spend our roadway dollars. We have a 3-year contract. We bid our asphalt services once every 3 years. So in determining the cost for this work that we're proposing, we used our on-call contract because that was the best data that we had available. And what we're trying to do here is not just resurface roads, not just wait until they need a complete resurface, but using a variety of maintenance measures through this program so that we're addressing needs, maintenance needs earlier on when the road is in a better condition. As depicted in this graph, for every dollar that we spend at a routine maintenance level, it would cost us between $5 and $8 if we waited until the road had failed and we needed to reconstruct the road. So it's important for us to be allocating a certain amount of our budget to real routine maintenance items and not waiting until things deteriorate considerably. So we took all of the data that we had, and instead of, we did break it down by classification of road, but we also broke it down by the type of repair that is needed, between whether it was a reconstruction, a full reconstruction, a mill level and overlay, a simple overlay, crack seal, or no maintenance. And what we found is that most of the work that needs to be done is in this mill level and overlay category, 85.8%, or about $7.7 million worth of work lies within this category. I didn't mention, but I should, if we were to do all of the maintenance work that we needed on the roads right now, it would be a cost of about $9 million. So then if you look at the type of work that is needed by category, I think this is important because in the past we've been spending most of our money on the main roads and the secondary mains, so the collectors and the local roads are not getting the attention they need, and that's where we're hearing most of the complaints is people living on the roads in front of their houses. They're not in the best condition. So if you look at the main roads, the average pavement condition index is a 70. If you go down to secondary roads, it falls to a 66, and again, that's because we're putting our money on the roads that have traveled the most. Collector roads, they're at a 58. Local roads are at a 53, and all roads together are at a 62. So again, we're hearing the most complaints about the local roads, which are in the worst condition, pavement condition index of 53. So the Board of Selectmen, one of the roles that they play in town is they are the road commissioners. So they determined that a long-term funding strategy needed to be developed, that the strategy should endeavor to maintain roads at a pavement condition index of 70, so about what you would see with the main roads. That consideration needed to be given to provide regular funding for local roads, and that a sustainable funding plan needed to be put in place that regularly and routinely address the maintenance roads or all maintenance roads. They determined that the current level of spending will not achieve the maintenance goals, as most of the annual funding goes to the main and the secondary main, leaving little left for local roads. So one thing that we looked at is that we determined that an effective pavement management plan applies a blend of repair strategies to optimally distribute the available budget. The available budget in fiscal 16 is about $667,000. Not sure that I mentioned on an annual basis we would need to spend about $1 million to $1.2 million to maintain roads at a pavement condition index of 70. So we're significantly under budget. We have a deficit, so to speak, of $333,000 annually. That's what we would need to spend in addition to keep the roads at the PCI of 70. The current level of spending is barely sufficient to address the mains and the secondaries. It leaves little to address the local roads. The board requested that we work on a short-term impactful solution. So what we did is we pulled out the local roads where we're hearing the most complaints. There are 117 roadway segments that are classified as local. 58 of them, or just under 50%, have a PCI of less than 70. So that's where we're focusing this effort. The cost to improve these 58 segments is about $3.1 million, significantly more than what we're budgeting on an annual basis. And then there are 41 segments that have a PCI of between 71 and 89. And the cost associated with bringing all of those up would be $257,000. So I've included that in this proposal. And then there are 18 segments that are at a 90 or above, and they don't need any maintenance at this point in time. So the total cost to make all of the needed improvements to the local roads is $3.38 million. So we'll call that $3.4 million. The next thing we wanted to look at is stormwater. We have some stormwater issues. We wanted to make sure that we had enough funding set aside if this was approved to be able to address any stormwater issues, whether it would be improving existing stormwater infrastructure or maybe installing something that doesn't currently exist to effectively deal with stormwater. So we've included $510,000 within this proposal specifically to address anticipated stormwater improvement needs. And the way that we calculated that is we assumed that 600 of the 1,100 catch basins currently in town would be included within this proposed scope of work, and that on an average, they would need $850 worth of maintenance. We also have some funding for the potential construction of swales and seeding on a limited basis. So we're looking at a total scope of $3.9 million. The next issue that we wanted to address is we have a handful of roads that are within the newly created sewer betterment district, where we were going to have the roads repaved through the betterment. But the residents in that area said, we would like to support this other program, but we don't want to pay for these roads twice. So is there a way to include the work that would have been done through the betterment within this plan? And so we took a look at including that. And so we've also included Rennie, Crossroad, Pine Grove, Lakeview, and Pleasant View in this plan, because those were roads that would have been paved through the betterment. And so that brings the total up to $3,985,000. So what we are proposing is a request to support a voter-authorized debt exclusion, which would be a one-time request to provide funding for a funding infusion for this plan. And I want to be clear that approval of this plan is a two-step process. What's before you today is a request to appropriate the funds subject to a debt exclusion. And the debt exclusion is on the ballot at the annual election. So while I'm saying we're requesting support for the debt exclusion, if you support it, we still need you to go out and vote and support it at the annual election. We're proposing that this scope of work would be completed over a 3 to 4 year period, and that it would be financed over a 15 to 17 year period. And we'll talk about the financing a little bit more in a minute. But thereafter, we are proposing that all of the work, maintenance to all classification of roads, including local roads, would be funded through the operating budget. So we're asking for additional funding for this scope of work, but then going forward, it would be included in the operating budget. And the way that we're looking to increase our operating budget to get to a point where it is sufficient to fund this program is that we would set aside $50,000 per year of motor vehicle excise tax and put that into the funding of roads. So 50,000, and then in the second year, it would be 50 plus 50, so 100,000. And we would do this until we got to a point where our $667,000 budget went up to $1 million or $1.2 million. And this just shows how that would work. Now on to the funding of this. The Board of Selectmen and the Town Treasurer are the authorities that get to decide how any debt issue is financed. So we had some discussion about how this would be financed. And I want to say we had a discussion at the Finance Committee level, at the Board of Selectmen level, and all of the residents that serve on these committees, the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, they are all very much in tune with the fact that the town residents have been asked to fund big ticket items, the school, and so they are keeping that in mind. And we spent a lot of time talking about, would it be possible to wait? The reason I showed you the graph with the debt service, and I pointed out the dip in 2024, is everybody would like to be able to wait until 2024, where we could slide this project in and not raise taxes anymore. But the reality is, it's just not possible to do that because the roads need to be repaired now. They needed to be repaired 5 years ago. If we wait another number of years, we're going to be paying a lot more than we are now because for every dollar we spend at routine maintenance, it's 5 to 8 when things really start to fall apart. So we looked at a number of scenarios on how we could finance this to have the least impact to the taxpayers, being respectful and mindful of the fact that the taxpayers are paying a lot for capital improvements for the town. So what we came up with is a scenario where we would fund this work, this scope of work, within 2 bond issues. We would, if this was approved, we'd issue a bond issue as early as fiscal 17, and then 2 years later we'd do another bond issue. And the impact to the average single-family home during the life of these 2 bond issues is between $22 and $84 a year. And that was the least expensive way for us to finance this very large project. So how does that impact residents? We have 3,472 households within the town of Lunenburg, 2,066 or 59.5% fall below the averaged assessed valuation, and 1,406 or 40.5 fall above the average assessed valuation. And the average assessed valuation was $256,968. So this shows what our total debt service would look like. This is exempt, just what the exempt debt service would look like. The existing is in blue, and the added, if this project was approved, is in red. This is what the average tax bill would look like if this was approved. Again, it peaks in fiscal 17, stays fairly constant through fiscal 2023, and then starts to dip in fiscal 2024. And then just in summary, the pavement management program is an inventory of each roadway under the town's jurisdiction. Based upon the pavement distresses observed in the field, the PCI is calculated on a scale of 0 to 100. We use that to develop a priority system on a scale of 30 to 0. The current policy of weighting local streets lowest and instead allocating funds first to the main roads does not adequately address the needs of residents. And both a commitment to increase the annual spending and one-time infusion of new funding is needed to get the pavement management program back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a borrowing article, so it's going to require 2/3. Anyone want to address Article 26?
Brian Markle, 450 Lancaster Avenue. Forgive me if this is a little detailed, but I'm curious. You list a particular road, Holman Street, 1 and 2. That's a road that is cut off by the Voltus Brook that had been running several years ago, but suddenly stopped because the bridge is no longer safe. Are bridges included in this? That's question 1. Question 2.
Why don't you one at a time?
Okay.
So bridges are not included in this.
Question 2 involves my neighbor across the street. I don't remember exactly what number that is, but it's on or about 4th Lancaster Ave, where the Catacunamog brook runs down Lancaster Avenue in front of my house, and then goes under Lancaster Avenue and across into a swampy field. And a few years back, there was a horrendous rainstorm, and the water built up so much because it didn't drain. There were apparently some clogs. The town didn't clean the water drainage system, and my neighbor was completely flooded out. She had several feet of water in her house. She's 94 years old. And it's not probably an issue for her much longer, but it is an issue for anyone in the town who has similar circumstances. Is that kind of thing going to be addressed?
So that particular project is not proposed to be addressed in this scope of work. Lancaster is a main road, and so any work done to that road would be a high priority for the existing funding that we have. This is to specifically address roads that are classified as local roads.
Thank you.
My name is John Esposito. I live at 406 Mullins Road. I completely agree with having these rules all done. It's just one thing I'm concerned about. How are they going to be done? A lot of roads that show cracks, that don't show cracks on the top, have cracks underneath, which is going to come to the surface shortly. I recommend that all these roads be pulverized, take the hollows out of them, put drainage in. If we're going to spend this amount of money, let's spend it in the right way and take them in the best way we can and get them done and not have to do them again in a few years.
One thing that I did not mention is there were 2 handouts as we came in today. One was a map, and it shows, and obviously you're not going to be able to see this, but if you didn't pick this up, it might be something that you want to take with you. It's color-coded, and it shows how we've evaluated the condition of every road in town, so you may be curious about that. And then the second was a spreadsheet that shows the proposed scope of work. It shows each of the roads proposed to be maintained or improved, and what we would propose to do, whether it would be a mill level, an overlay, complete reconstruction, crack seal, something like that. So that is included in the handouts as well.
David Carlo, Hannah Road. Just a little bit of newsworthy stuff. When the economy went back in 2008 when it declined, the state cut their chapter 90 money for the town. So I know I talked to a lot of people at the town of Bloomberg are awful, but they're awful everywhere. It has nothing to do with the way DPW's run, the way the town's run. They're just awful everywhere. But I want to congratulate them for taking the opportunity now to sit there and get this town back on track, giving us good roads, helping people not have repairs on their cars. Because other towns are looking at Bloomberg right now saying, what a good idea. Because the price of asphalt is the lowest it's going to be for a while. We all know that 5 years from now, asphalt's not going to be this price, and it all goes with the cost of oil. So, Mr. LaFleur, I want to thank you. Either way it comes out, I'm going to vote yes for this, but I want to thank you for the hard work you did on this program. I think that's excellent. Thank you.
I generally don't allow a lot of clapping like Mr. Bartlett did, but I'll allow that. Any other questions, comments about Vote, all those in favor. It's a borrowing article, like 2/3. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Article 27, Mr. Zoll.
Mr. Moderator, this Article 27 and 28 are related. They'll be covered by one presentation.
One presentation. Articles 27 to 28 are related. There'll be one presentation that'll cover both, but we will move Article 27 at this time.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer care, custody, management, and control of the land described herein from the school committee for school purposes to the school committee for school purposes and the board of selectmen for the purpose of disposition by leasing to telecommunications companies for the location of telecommunications facilities, and further to authorize the board of selectmen to enter into such a lease or leases for said purposes for the portion of the land located at Lunenburg High School, 1079 Massachusetts Avenue, Lunenburg, as shown on the tax map of the town of Lunenburg as parcel ID number 060/055, and being further described in book 1586, page 79. Each as recorded in the Worcester Registry of Deeds, said portion of land identified on the sketch plan entitled Conceptual Site Plan as prepared by Dewberry Engineers, Inc., as on file in the office of the town clerk upon such terms and conditions, and for the period in excess of 3 years as the board of selectmen shall determine to be in the best interest of the town, and further to authorize the grant of easements upon said land as may be necessary for the utility services in support of such use, and to authorize the board of selectmen to execute such agreements and take such actions as deemed necessary to effectuate the purposes of this article.
Is there a second? Second. Second. Selectmen, your recommendation?
The board of selectmen recommends approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee will hold their recommendation until after the presentation.
Remind me to ask for it again. Mr. Tolley, your board made you read the long one. Who's going to make the presentation?
Town manager.
So this, as mentioned, is a request to authorize replacement of the existing track and field, turf field. This complex is 11 years old, and anybody who's been out to use it, to watch their kids play on it, it needs to be replaced. It was originally built using several funding sources, one of which would be annual payments that were made by the school and some of the youth organizations. Those payments that the youth organizations, LISA and the Bengals, they were tied to the original debt service. So when the original debt service was retired, those payments stopped coming in, but obviously we still need to maintain the turf fields and now at the point of replacing it. So the Parks Commission, who are the caretakers of this complex, were asked to develop a funding scenario that would pay for replacement costs of this complex on an ongoing basis. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, this is the existing track and field, and this is looking out onto the new school, the new high school, middle school. This is a picture that shows on the right-hand side the new school, and on the left-hand side the existing one where we are right now. Here's an example of the deterioration of the field. You can see there's a tear, some of the surface missing. So we first started looking at just replacing the existing track and turf field with in the same manner, the same infill, specifically for the turf field itself. So it would cost between $550,000 to $600,000 to replace both the track and the field. As we got into this discussion, some issues arose about the safety of crumb rubber, which is the infill that is used within the existing turf field. And then there were some other concerns about the padding or lack of padding, and maybe there would be interest in putting in a pad that would be a shock absorbent pad that would help with concussions, because the health issues related to the infill and concussion seem to be the two biggest issues that come up when you're talking about artificial turf field. So we then got a quote or an estimate for replacement, but replacing the crumb rubber to this new product, which is called EPDM, and then installing a Brock shock absorbent pad. So if you add those two items in, it increases the cost about $170,000. So together, we're looking at about $770,000 replacement cost for this complex. So this is a borrowing article, as the moderator mentioned. It requires a 2/3 vote. But as I mentioned, we're looking to come up with a funding scenario that would enable the debt service to be paid by the users of this track and field. So we're looking at two different sources. We're looking at all rental income, but the first coming from the users, from Lunenburg Public Schools, from the Lunenburg Youth Soccer Association, and the Bengals football program. We're looking at each of those organizations contributing an amount that's shown in the slide. And then we're looking at a second component, which is a cell tower, and that would produce rental income of $30,000 in the first year with a 3% escalator going forward. So we have total rental income at this time of $77,500 plus the escalation for the cell tower revenue. So I think probably everybody understands the rentals that different organizations would pay. So I'd like to spend a few minutes about how this cell tower rental income would work. So the town issued a request for proposal several months ago and received 2 responses. The most advantageous response was from Verizon Wireless, and their proposal would be to replace the existing 60-foot lighting pole, which I think was visible in one of the pictures, with a 75-foot cell tower that would have the same lights mounted at 60 feet. So it would be a dual-purpose pole. It would provide $30,000 in rental income in year 1, and that would be payment that would be paid upon issuance of the building permit. And then the rental income would go up 3% per year thereafter. The initial term of the contract is 10 years with 4 additional 5-year terms for a total term of 30 years. Article 27 requests 3 different things. The transfer of the land for the purpose of leasing for a cell tower. It requests authorization for the Board of Selectmen to enter into a long-term lease for the purpose of constructing a telecommunications facility. And it also authorizes the granting of a utility easement to bring utilities to this cell tower. And then Article 28 requests authorization to borrow the money to fund this capital improvement. One thing I do want to mention, I didn't mention the $77,500 in rental income. That is sufficient to support debt service on a bond issue, a $770,000 bond issue with a term of 12 years. We do expect the useful life of this facility to be between 12 and 15 years. I know the current one we're at 11 years. It's seen a higher wear and tear because it was put in, it was being used when the complex wasn't completely finished. So we are expecting a little bit of a longer life with the new facility. And this essentially would be, people asked, it's really like a car payment. We're always going to be making a payment on this field because as soon as we pay off the existing or this next one, we're probably within the next year or so going to need to replace it. So we're just going to continue those annual payments, and we're really just going to be continually making a car payment. So that's how that works.
We're going to take them in order. Article 26, the easement to transfer and control. 27. and then 28 will take up second. Let's have questions about either one. It's okay for now, just so we can be expeditious. Young lady.
My name is Jean Fairnese, 46 Pine Street. I have two concerns about the proposed cell tower addition. First of all, one question that I would like to ask is the town legally allowed to use land that was designated for school or playground use and trying to use that for commercial purposes? It was brought to my attention elsewhere that Massachusetts general law, I believe chapter 40, restricts use in property that has been appropriated for such purposes as school or a park to then be used for commercial enterprises without a 2/3 town majority vote. This is something we can address.
Good question. I guess we'll ask Tom.
Mr. Moderator, what's being requested here is the 2/3 vote to transfer from school purpose to another purpose. And actually, that statute refers to change of any municipal function to another. So this would be that 2/3 vote to satisfy that requirement.
Okay. My other concern, and it's a much larger concern, is the safety of having cell towers in the first place, particularly so close to where children are in school for 6 hours a day playing on the fields underneath the towers. There's growing evidence that cell towers are very hazardous to health, that they do put out a lot of microwave radiation. And a number of schools around the country and around the world have put towers only to find a lot of serious health effects on the children and sometimes the staff, and ended up needing to take them down. This does include things like cancer, nosebleeds, children with serious headaches being sent home, disabilities. The Wall Street Journal recently carried a report that Lloyd's of London is no longer going to insure or reimburse claims that were related to these kind of health issues when people were located close to cell towers. So I'm very much concerned about the welfare of the children in the schools so close to the towers, as well as the teachers there, the safety of people sitting underneath these towers. The FCC regulations are often not even, the Land 10 cell towers are not compliant. According to the FCC regulations, and even the FCC regulations are questionable as far as their safety, the American Academy of Pediatrics has urged their concern about these kind of towers being placed near our children. So, in light of that, in light of the liability that may arise from any suits that may come down the road, I'd ask us to strongly stop and look at the health risks. 50, 60 years ago, we built a building with asbestos. We know better now. We wouldn't do that again, and we're paying to remediate that now. I'd ask that we not make the same mistake, putting a cell antenna up on school grounds. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if Mr. Fleur can address some of your health concerns, so I will ask her. Mr. Wanda? Okay.
Good afternoon, John Londa, Director of Facilities for Bloomberg Public Schools. Just two points I wanted to make on that. So we didn't, we have looked at this issue. I would just reference American Cancer Society website. They do have an extensive discussion about this issue. On that website, under the question, do cellular phone towers cause cancer? Their answer is some people have expressed concern that living and working or going to school near a cell tower might increase the risk of cancer or other health problems. At this time, there's very little evidence to support this idea. In theory, there are some important points that would argue against cellular phone towers being able to cause cancer. First being the energy level of radio frequencies, RF frequencies, are relatively low, and especially compared to types of radiation that are known to cause the increase in cancer, such as gamma rays, X-rays, UV light. Secondly, has to do with the wavelength, RF wavelengths, long wavelengths, which can only be concentrated down to about 1 inch or 2 in size. Makes it unlikely that the energy from RF wave would be concentrated enough to affect individual cells in the body. And thirdly, even if RF waves were somehow able to affect cells in the body at a higher dose, the level of RF frequencies present at ground level is very low. For this reason, most scientists agree that cell phone antennas or towers are likely to cause cancer. That's my first point. The second one had to do with just orientation on the antennas. So the current proposed orientation are to the north, to the east, and to the southeast. So that none of the antennas will be pointed at the middle school, high school.
Thank you.
Paul Paradise, 46 9th Street. First of all, I'd like to make it seem like it is unfair that these two articles are brought together. It seems like a no-brainer. We've got the money now from the cell tower to pay for the track, and that doesn't allow for the discretion of what we're talking about with the potential health risks that I don't feel have been studied to the extent necessary from anybody in this town towards the cell tower problems. So that being said, are we going to look at other ways to potentially, keep up the costs for our track and field without the use of cell tower? Because otherwise, this gets voted right now expeditiously, and it's a done deal. And I'm just wondering if the board is interested in looking further into potential health risks with cell tower.
Someone from the board want to address that?
I think the town manager.
Okay.
No, I think the facilities manager.
Facilities manager. Looking at funding it in any other way other than contributing funding coming from something. Is there an interest in examining that?
As for this particular article, when it came to the linking of the two, the answer to your question is no. It took a lot of opportunity to come up with this proposal, and it relied on the cell phone towers, of which we have many in Town Hall and other places, so we did not believe it would bring up, these arguments have been brought up before, and the same studies have been used to counter the health argument before in other places in town. So we didn't think it would raise any different objections, but no, to the best of my knowledge, we have not studied any other proposals to remedy or replace that $30,000 a year.
If there were studies available that would prove otherwise, would they be considered? It doesn't sound that way.
I think we'd be open to consider any studies that people brought forward. As Mr. Lander, as the director of the school facility, just said, we've looked at these in other places. I know the planning board and other locations of cell towers, this issue has come up in large regard, so it has been discussed in the town before. If somebody has new studies, of course we'd be looking to consider them.
So we could hold off the aspect of the voting for the cell towers then right now, couldn't we?
Well, to address your point that this was a done deal, of course, it's not. That's why it's in front of town meeting. So certainly town meeting has the ability to do that.
We spent about an hour or so on the water district and et cetera, towards just the potential for a study. And it wasn't even about health, it's just the monies and the funding that kind of go with that. I certainly agree. Here we are, potential for a health risk. And we don't seem to be wanting to go forward with that.
Let me suggest to you, sir, okay, that if you want to make an amendment, that this is the time, okay? So if you're before us now, it's an article that's before you, you would have a right to make an amendment. I think it would probably be in Article 28, which is the funding article. They're being presented together so you get the whole picture. Article 27 is about transferring an Okay, so 20, so I stand corrected. 27 does approve the funding coming from this cell phone. Well, it really just pertains to a contract, allowing them to contract. Let me just finish my comment. I think that the actual funding of it doesn't come from 28. The authorization to enter into the contract. Okay. All right, so let's assume then that I stand corrected. 27 is the article that you would address. If you wanted to make an amendment about that $30,000, this would be your time.
I guess what's not, see, I guess I'm for the funding, minus the cell tower money. That's what I want to be clear about.
So you don't phrase it article 22, but I take that to say you want to amend article 27 to leave $30,000 from the cell phone.
Yes, I want to separate them until further studies are made to whether the cell tower would be advantageous to the towns. Does that make sense?
The articles are already separate. What we're discussing them together. Joint stand and interrelation. Article 27 stands on its own as it is presented. You can simply vote against it. Go ahead.
That was my answer, was that really there are amendments to Article 27, but that is to establish the cell tower. And if you don't have a cell tower, you basically vote against this article, and then that eliminates the $30,000.
Okay, so these two amendments, these two articles will be voted on separately?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry. I heard. Go ahead.
Carl Moore, Canterbury Drive. I just want to address that last speaker. Are you asking that the town do a study that to establish the health and safety aspects of the cell tower?
Yes, before we approve it, yes.
So you're saying you want Tom Bloomberg to do a study that will also organizations that stuff, and that the American Cancer Society on our own, and how are we going to fund that? So that'd be fun.
The American Cancer Society isn't the final word on this. Are they?
Why would they not?
Because there are other health risks related to cell phone towers that have nothing to do with cancer.
Okay, and what are those?
It's too long of a discussion. That's why I'm just looking for us to look at this again. It sounds like they've already gone through this over and over and over with many other cell towers, but it remains to be seen.
I'm getting it. So you guys can't have your But I want to encourage people to come and talk, so that's why I don't shut you down. I think that's important. But it's really outside the scope of the article about a study on cancer. Okay. No amendment. I was asking if you were.
Greg Bitter, 129 Pleasant Street. I do support replacing the track in the field. I do have a concern with the granting of the authority to enter into these agreements. I just want to make sure it's specific to this site and specific to this cell phone tower. I just want to make sure we're not granting blanket authority unknowingly to add other projects of this nature without coming back to the town meeting.
Town council.
I would say it's.
Yeah, I know. Let him tell you whether or not he believes it's sufficiently limited.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, in my opinion, it is specific to this site.
So in a few months, if another cell phone company came in and said they wanted to put something on that tower, would the board of selectmen have the authority to do that without coming back before town meeting?
Moderator, on this tower, it will be leased to a cell phone company if there's room for another co-location by another cell company. That company who's leasing it from the town would have the right to allow someone else to go onto the tower. There's only limited capacity in any of these towers unless they're 150 feet high. But as a practical matter, there may or may not be room for another locator. That would be it. But yes, the cell provider would have the ability to allow that.
Good afternoon, Dennis Spinoni, 635 River Street, a member of the Parks Commission and also a member of the Capital Planning Commission. I'd like to speak in favor of these two articles and commend the town officials and youth groups and various committees that worked on this. They really had to do their due diligence and look at ways of funding this particular project. As you know, we don't want to come to the taxpayers time and time again, and this was a creative way, utilizing many sources to help fund a project like this. The safety issues, you know, there are always concerns with safety issues, and no matter what we do in our lives today, whether we're driving down the highway and get hit by a tire that flies off, there's a number of different things. And why I bring that up is this device in everybody's pocket right now is still very much in question as well. And unfortunately, that's, you know, the way we live today. Not great, but it is the way we live. But again, get back to the real point. Creative way to fund this, and I'm in favor of it. And I'd like the AD, the athletic director, maybe just to speak about if this didn't get passed, what would be some of the concerns moving forward with a brand new high school and no fields to play on.
At Little John, 87 Old Farm Road, I'm just curious if anybody's looked to see if an actual turf field would be more affordable than I'll be to meet for a cell tower entirely.
Well, since I was invited up, I'll be happy to answer a number of questions. At this point, to answer your question, to go from the artificial turf field that is not there now to a natural grass field would not save us any money. It is not set up for a natural grass field. Underneath that field is stone and stone dust. There's no support system for a grass field. Part of the reason that we're in this position is the school's construction. We lost most of our athletic fields for the last 2 years due to the construction of the new school. The artificial turf field is vital to our athletic programming and to our youth sports programs simply because it is artificial and it can sustain heavier use than a grass field can. And for this short duration, this construction coincided with the end of the life of that field. Unless we move with this article today, next fall, we will have 0 fields here at Newburgh High School for any of our teams to play on. That field is at the end of its life. We will not be able to play on the artificial turf field. The new field out front is only 80% of the field. It cannot be completed until the school comes down and the current school driveway is removed. And it will be another year before the extension on the current field along Mass Ave is playable. And the 2 fields that are going in here where the school currently exists will not be available to us for another year. So next fall, we'll be looking at some drastic scenarios for athletics, both for the youth teams and for the school. We would be unable to host any home games. A number of our teams would then have to be transported off-site for practices, and that would have considerable financial impact to the athletic program. Several programs would have to be reduced or eliminated at least for 1 year. As far as the track is concerned, the track is a resurfacing, not a replacement. The resurfacing of the track is $129,000. For the past several years, we have been monitoring the condition of the track to avoid having to do a replacement of the track. The cracks and things that are developing in the surface of the track again to the point where another year from now, we will more than likely be looking at having to not just remove the track, but the asphalt underneath it, and that will increase the cost of that project for the track from $129,000 to something in excess of $400,000 to $500,000. So we're really at a critical point for all of our athletic programs that coincided with the construction of the school and loss of fields. And we worked with the youth groups in town and with this cell phone tower proposal to put together something that would have the least impact financially and allow those using the fields to pay for the vast majority of it.
I'm not sure if I answered my question. The turf field in the short term is more expensive, but in the long term, is it also more expensive? I didn't clean the answer.
I'm sorry. One, you can't just plant grass out there where the field exists now. You have to-
I get that. It will take preparation, and it's going to be costly at first, but the long-term cost of sustaining it, would that be less or more?
I guess the cost of a grass field and an artificial turf field are pretty close to the same thing over the course of time. The difference is with an artificial turf field can sustain much more use than the grass field can.
Question? Go right ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to touch base one more time. I understand that some scientists maintain that the cell towers are safe. Many others, however, disagree. The World Health Organization itself has deemed it Class 2B carcinogen. Some people are saying, well, maybe it will be safe, maybe it won't. Once it's already entrenched, we'll latch onto it for a 10-year commitment or whatever. If we have any misgivings or we do want to take it back, I don't see a way that we can rescind that. I have personally met people who are incapacitated because of electromagnetic frequency issues around their homes. People who have been displaced, who have had to move because they are critically ill on account of this. It's not just theory, it's what's really happening to people. And countries around the world have even lower allowances than we have in the United States. I think that's something worth looking at, and I'd like us to take it seriously before our children end up potentially harmed, as well as the teachers run schools all day. So I would like to go on record saying that I do not believe they are safe. I do think we should look carefully at whether we want to expose our children or grandchildren to this. And I would like to propose the amendment to withdraw that part, what you described earlier about the cell tower to help pay for it. I appreciate the desire for a new track and field. I hope all of that comes to fruition, but
I appreciate that you intended to get rid of the cell tower party of the
Mr. Moderator, could you use a microphone? Some of us are over 70. They cross way over 70.
I'd like to walk around.
What
do you say? I'd like to walk around.
Thank you.
I understand that the intent is to get rid of the cell tower portion or Article 28, and I'm trying to get an answer from the board if the citizen wishes to remove that portion. Is it coming out of Article 27 or Article 28?
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to refer to the town council to verify, but my understanding is that if the people who are speaking against this don't want the location of the cell tower because of the proximity to the school and the health concerns, they would vote against this article. Funding in Article 28 is just where the money goes if we put it there. This is the one that actually locates it and actually gets the cell tower on. And I would ask town council to verify that.
Mr. Moderator, I was just discussing that with the town manager. I think the points that are being made, the folks who feel that way simply have to vote against this article. There's really no amending this article. One of the primary purposes of this article is to transfer the land so in fact it can be used to site a cell tower. So people who are opposed or concerned about the presence of the site of the cell tower on the school property simply vote against this article. There's no amending this article to clean that up. That's one of the primary purposes of this article.
That's fine. He had suggested that earlier, that's why I thought it might be advisable, but I'm comfortable with what you said, thank you.
Okay.
John, I'm glad to share this speak.
Thanks a lot, I think that's.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for the nice word. Now, Michael Jeffrey, 1170 Massachusetts Avenue. I have a question with regard to telecommunication facilities. What does that specifically mean? And I also have a comment.
Mr. Moderator, in short, I mean, it's just shorthand for cell towers, really. I mean, the cell towers, as we all know, now do more than transmit our phone calls, but it's the towers that allow us to, do research on our cell phones and all of that. But it's basically a cell tower.
Does this wording prohibit Verizon from opening up a store in the middle of town? Or a corporate facility in the middle of town?
Yes, I mean, well, it doesn't, it's simply for the siting of a cell tower and nothing more.
All right, thank you. My comment today is really, I appreciate the concerns about health that are being raised with regard to this. However, I think that most of us in our lives use cell phones all the time. We have them on us. I think it's an appropriate argument that my fellow citizen is making with regards to the concern. However, I believe very strongly that we all take necessary risks in our lives. That's when we graduate from Lunenburg High School. It's extremely important for us to have appropriate fields for the kids to play on. When they go to other towns and communities and they come back here to Lunenburg and we don't have appropriate fields, I think this, for what it looks bad. The other comment is, it costs a lot of money to live here in Lunenburg. You have to make a decent income to live in this town. I think that means that we should be able to give our kids appropriate facilities for them to go to school in. We have new schools, they should have a new field. I think this is a great way to keep our taxes from going up and to allow this to pass. With all the concerns to the side, I encourage everyone to vote for both this and this article.
Mr. Moderator, Dave Rogers, 82 Howard Street. I will be extremely brief. Many years ago, when I was and I appreciate your opportunity. Mr. Moderator, many years ago, when I was a water commissioner in town, we looked at the possibility of putting cell towers on our storage tanks. We did exhaustive studies. We called in noted people that were responsible, with manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and there was nothing that prohibited us from doing it in terms of health. So I don't think that there is an issue from my perspective.
Good afternoon, my name is Laura Layton. I reside at 359 Wheel Road. I am in opposition to this article as stated for artificial turf. I believe we can do this much more, for much less money if we roll out sod. And the maintenance of it, as discussed with the dust underneath, you don't need that much dirt underneath to roll outside, to grow sod, keep it, maintain it. So I'm in opposition to this. I believe we should do it much more cost effectively by utilizing sod. Thank you.
Rebecca Landry, 251 West Street, Lunenburg, Mass. I'm a registered nurse. I don't notice that there's any more cancer clusters in the center of town because we have cell phone towers. There are not more center clusters of cancer in the present location of where we have the cell phone towers on top of the water towers. And as Dave Rogers, I hate to agree with him. They did exhaustive studies. It's true. And all of us can vote with this. We have them, we use them, and we want reception here in Lunenburg. Thank you.
Mark Burke, I'd like to speak to the grass, okay? Those that know me know I'm about grass. And honestly, yes, green will play with it. So, I should be against the artificial turf because I like grass and that's my business. But I feel there's a place for artificial turf. I was against when the school wanted to use contingency money to put a second field of artificial turf in. I believe we definitely need one. There are a lot of weather conditions that dictate whether our kids can play sports or not. They can't always be played on natural turf fields. The cost of renovating this field from an artificial turf field into a grass field, I feel it may be close, but I still feel the need for an artificial turf field in the town of Lunenburg is definitely needed. I think the people that have put together the proposal for funding did a great job. We've been doing it in the water district for years. We have cell towers all throughout the community. I appreciate the health concerns people have, but I am in support of this article, regardless that I can't mow the artificial field. And I feel that I would like to have everybody else be in support of the article as well.
Before I ask you the question, I will answer one other question that came up. And this $770,000 project is the replacement of the current artificial turf field and the resurfacing of the track facility. Together, the total is the $770. It takes care of both issues down on that facility.
Okay, we are ready to go. I know. Thank you. I might have forgotten, but now I'm going to say I didn't forget. Our Finance Committee recommendation.
We recommend approval.
So, all those in favor, 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 27, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Passes by more than 2/3. Article 28 now.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town appropriate $770,000 to pay costs of replacing the artificial turf field and track at the school campus, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 725 of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
The Board of Selectmen recommends this be approved 4-1.
So, Finance Committee.
We recommend approval. We have 4 votes in favor, 1 member abstained.
Thank you. Okay, 2/3 vote because it's borrowed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Passes by more than 2/3. I declare. Article 29.
I move that the town vote.
Hold on, don't make a lot of noise, but if you must leave, take a sandwich. Everybody please leave in silence so we can conduct the rest of the business. We'd love you to stay, but if you must.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, and/or eminent domain the fee to and/or permanent and/or temporary easements in portions of parcels of and located on Summer Street and North Street and other abutting ways for public way purposes, including without limitation, in the construction, alteration, installation, maintenance, improvement, repair, replacement, and/or relocation of rights of way, sidewalks, drainage, utilities, slope, grading, rounding, construction, and other easements to enable the town to undertake the 606124 Fitchburg, Lunenburg, Leominster, Summer Street, North Street project, which parcels are listed on the sheet entitled Preliminary Right-of-Way Parcel Summary Sheet, and approximately shown on plans entitled Preliminary Right-of-Way Property Plan, on file with the town clerk, as the same may be amended from time to time, and land within 100 feet of said parcels, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into all agreements and take any actions necessary or appropriate
to carry out the foregoing transaction.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Selectmen recommendation.
Recommend approval.
Finance committee.
We recommend approval.
Thank you. Tell us about the article.
Refer to town meeting.
Okay, just one slide on this. So we are seeking authorization for the board to acquire temporary and permanent easements needed for the reconstruction of Summer Street. There are 37 temporary easements that are needed, and they are generally needed for regrading the connection of existing property to the new, more narrow roadway. There are 2 permanent easements that are needed, and they are needed for the reconstruction of an existing outfall on the MBTA property. The reconstruction of this project, the rehabilitation of Summer Street, is funded through TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan Program. These are grant funds from the federal government, and this project is slated for funding in federal fiscal year 17. There may be some minor costs for these easements, which can be paid out of Chapter 90 funds or the existing budgetary or the operating budget, so we're not looking at this time anyway for additional funding for these easements.
Anyone on Article 29? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 29, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 30. 30 and 31, as I understand it, are also going to be presented somewhat together. Is that correct, Mr. Berthium?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, Article 30.
But we will vote for them separately. Anybody want to do that? Okay?
I move that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of a portion of the land with the building thereon, known as the Brooks House, located at 1079 Mass Ave, shown on Assessors Map 60, parcel 55, and shown on a plan of land entitled T.C. Passios and Brooks House Conceptual Site Plan, filed with the town clerk, from the school committee held for school purposes to the Board of Selectmen for general and municipal purposes, and for the purpose of conveyance, and authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey said property on such terms and conditions as for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate.
Is there a second? Second. Selecting your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance committee.
We recommend approval.
Mr. Berthium, you going to address this?
I think Ms. LaFleur is going to address
You
it.
can defer too. You're lucky.
Okay, so as just read in the motion, this is a request for town meeting to authorize the school committee to transfer these 2 properties to the Board of Selectmen. The Brooks House for the purpose of conveyance, which is in Article 30, and Passios for general municipal purposes, including but not limited to the development of town hall, which is in the next article. This is a map, a site plan that shows the proposed parcels that will be associated with each of the properties. Towards the bottom of the screen to Mass Ave, Route 2A, the Brooks House is what you see there. That parcel is approximately 1.1 acres. And then behind it, the Passios building on a lot of approximately 4.1 acres. In terms of the Brooks House, it currently provides office space for the school facilities director, and it is also partially rented to, or part of it is rented to the Lunenburg Ledger, a private entity which provides rental income that covers the building's carrying costs. The plan for this property, if it is transferred from the school committee to the Board of Selectmen, ultimately we would be, after we do the market analysis, potentially looking at selling this property. But in the meantime, I would recommend that we continue to house the facilities director and rent to the ledger, and that will cover the carrying costs of this building while we're trying to determine what the final outcome will be for the building. In terms of the Passios, it currently houses school offices, including central administration, the school's extended day program. It also houses PAC, our Public Access Cable Committee, and FLAC, which is an educational collaborative outside of the Lunenburg Public School System. The plan for this, while we do the market analysis and determine whether or not it's feasible to renovate this building to house municipal offices in the future, would be to continue to rent the building to these different groups that are already there. This is an existing, a floor plan of existing conditions, and it shows who is in what location. The back of the building, denoted with the letter A, that is where FLAC is. The Lunenburg Public Schools administrative offices are located in the rooms that have a B in them. C is extended day, and D is TAC, Public Access Cable Committee. The cost to operate this building on an annual basis are just under $135,000. And we would be looking to collect rent in that amount. FLAC, the Education Collaborative, would be paying an annual rental fee of $95,000 per year. PAC currently pays $6,000. We've offered them some additional space for a total of $10,000. They have not made a decision whether they want the additional space, but whether they pay $6,000 for what they have or $10,000 for the added space, this model still works. We would be looking to charge a rental to the extended day program of $20,000 per year and $15,000 per year to the Lunenburg Public Schools administrative offices. That would leave us a reserve of a little over $5,000 to cover any unanticipated expenses. So that's the proposal on those two articles.
Sir. You're up.
Dave Brocky, 733 West Street. If you could just flip back to the map for a second. Yeah, so is your intention to, I should say, is the Brooks House and that center triangle in front of the patios, those are going to be part of the same parcel, and would those be sold off together if that were the case, or you think we keep that little triangle because it makes it a nice addition to the other center? Plus it's off street, so it's not as dangerous when you park at the gazebo. I would worry about my kids. I wouldn't worry about them there. That's all.
Mike Chapdelaine, 208 Leominster Road. I was going to ask this question at the last article, and I didn't dare, so I'm going to ask it now. I was a little surprised to see that the school department pays money to another town entity. When you showed the income for the track and field, it showed the Lunenburg Public Schools paying a fee to, I think, a piece of property that's owned by the town. And then I see it here with the area that's being used in the patio school. So does the town pay themselves? I guess is what my question is.
So the reason we're proposing to charge rental fees for this space is this building is owned by the school, under the jurisdiction of the school committee. It is maintained currently through the Lunenburg Public Schools budget. The request is to transfer it over to the town for some sort of disposition, which probably would be for reuse for additional municipal offices. But the costs associated with running this building, they need to be borne, and it makes sense to be borne by the offices that are using them. So Lunenburg Public Schools is currently paying more than this to use this facility. Going forward, we need them to pay something to be able to keep this facility operational. It's being kept operational mostly for Lunenburg Public School offices.
So this money transaction kind of takes place behind the scenes through funding, or do they actually write a check from the Lunenburg Public Schools to the town of Lunenburg?
No, it's through a budgetary transfer, yes.
Anything else on Article 30, Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Moderator, I understand what we're doing, but I want to make sure, I think, that I'm correct. Article 31, if we vote affirmatively, that means that we have already earmarked the Pascal School for the town hall.
So the wording in 31 31, which is not up there. It says for, maybe, could we go back to 31?
Put 31 up.
I mean 31. So it says to transfer down the last 3 lines for general municipal purposes, including but not limited to development of a town hall.
Okay, what other general municipal purposes could you see?
Mr. Moderator, we certainly could demolish the building and build another field, or have additional recreation, or keep it for future school use.
Okay.
But to answer your first question, is that before anything's gonna happen going forward, assuming the market analysis comes through and everything, we're still gonna have to vote to do something in the future. Town meeting could vote to still sell the property in the future.
Okay, I'm concerned, I'm concerned that just the picture of the footprint, I'm not convinced that there's enough parking. So I think that is going to be a real consideration. Not to mention the cost, because I don't want to just get carte blanche and not know what the costs are. The real issue is, let's for the sake of conversation say that the Passio School becomes the new town hall. We will then have the Brooks House, if it's not sold, the Ritter Building, Town Hall, and the old primary school. And I feel strongly that the town of Lunenburg should not be in the real estate business. So before we can go off and build anything, I really personally have to know that there's a plan in place that makes sense for the buildings that are vacant, because it's, I think it's very, very important for the center and for the community at large. Thank you.
If I might, the work of the Building Reuse Committee did address those issues, did make after a 2.5-year study, did make a recommendation, is currently proposing that it is most likely that the best use of the Passios would be for municipal buildings, and that the other buildings that the speaker mentioned would be made available for either sale or other use and not just be left vacant. The market analysis that the town meeting approved will give us the final piece of that data in order for us to come back to town meeting in the future time to finalize that plan and get the town approved.
No one else at the microphone. Declare we're ready to vote on Article 30 alone. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Would someone, Mr. Berthium, move Article 31, please?
Absolutely. I move that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of a portion of the land with the building thereon known as the T.C. Passios Elementary School, located at 1079 Mass Ave, shown on Assessors Map 60, Parcel 55, and shown on the plan of land entitled T.C. Passios and Brooks House Conceptual Site Plan on file with the town clerk, from the school committee held for school purposes to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes, including but not limited to the development of a town hall or take any other action relative thereto.
There's a second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
We recommend approval.
Any other discussion on Article 31? Ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes by more than 2/3 majority. Article 32, Mr. Eversole.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey to the owners of the property located at 1134 Northfield Road, shown on Assessor's Map 36, Parcel 26, and their successors, a non-exclusive perpetual easement along and upon those portions of the town-owned property at 1134 Northfield Road, Lunenburg, approximately 6 feet wide by 225 feet long along Northfield Road, for the purpose of installing and maintaining a septic system upon the portion of said property. On such terms and conditions which the Board of Selectmen may determine, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into all agreements and to take any actions necessary or appropriate to carry out the foregoing transaction.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
We see no direct financial impact.
Mr. Eversole, about the article.
This is an existing house that, due to the configuration of the property and where the septic system can go, needs access at the beginning of the front part of the property. I believe we have done this at least 2 other times. DPW is okay with this. This is not going to affect maintenance of the road.
Any questions about 32? Seeing none, we declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. I have to warn you, lunch is going to be packed up at 2 o'clock and it's 10 minutes out. I don't want you to leave, just want you to get your lunch. We want to support the lady. I promote this as often as I do, but it's important to be able to have them here, for them to be profitable doing it, and it allows us to run the meeting all the way through and get our business done while there might be sun outside. Article 33. Mr. Smith? There he is.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First, I'd like to thank Dave Rogers for following through with his commitment on the vacate after the article for the water project. This article. I move that the town vote to approve a zone change from recreational to residence A for the land described as parcel 12 on Assessors Map 37, also known as 1026 Northfield Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectmen, your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance Committee.
We see no direct financial impact.
Smith, tell us about the article.
This is an 8-acre parcel of land that abuts Maplewood, or I should say, Settlers Path, I guess. It was Maplewood Golf Course, along the westerly border. Back in 1990, at a town meeting similar to this, a previous owner who left hundreds of acres and had a big grandiose design for a little 18-hole golf course, put hundreds of houses and condos. Of course, that all fell through 25 years ago. Bottom line is, the land was put under, because it was purchased by that developer, along with Maplewood Golf Course, under Residence A, the front portion. And the back section, the back 6 acres, fell under his recreational zoning. The golf course has sold that property to me and Lucy Buckley, and we don't own the golf course. So what we'd like to do is have that 6-acre parcel that was voted in the same way, voted out the same way, back to Residence A. It's buying properties to all Residence A. Everything about it in that area is Residence A. Seems to be a logical choice.
Okay, right there. Anybody have any questions about Article 33? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Article 34. Mr. Alonso.
I move that the town vote to pass over Article 34.
There is second. Second. Tell us why we're passing it over, Mr. Alonso.
It was a placeholder as shown on the screen there for Doppler radar tower, and we do not have such an agreement in place to vote upon.
All those in favor of passing over, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Luck, we'll bring you back. Long pause in between.
It's good to be back. Article 25. I move that the town vote to accept the revisions that amend the comprehensive wastewater management plan, CWMP, phase 4 report. Such revisions currently on file in the office of the town clerk, Board of Selectmen, and Stuart Yard.
Is there a second? Selecting your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen will make a recommendation after the presentation.
All right, remind me. FinCom?
The Finance Committee will make their recommendation after the presentation as well.
Mr. Luck, you better make a good presentation.
Okay, the CWMP. The CWMP that we are revising was originally created and passed at town meeting in 2010. It took a couple of years even before that to create it. All the changes to this document, it's very important that this be approved at town meeting because this is the guiding document for the sewer commission to make decisions on. So it's very important to keep up to date. All the changes that have been made to date have been brought to town meeting, but they've been very minor. They've just been making minor corrections to the sewer service area. But there are no substantial changes within the other parts of the document.
this is the document, so I'm ready. Any questions? The key aspects of this plan are that it defines the areas that can be served by sewer. So that is really the highest level, most important thing in the town. The town controls where we can sewer and where we can't, and that's part of this document. And that has not been changed in this document. That is not one of the changes being made. It provides guidance on the infrastructure, so it provides in here at least at the time of publication, what the recommended sewering strategy would be, pressure, gravity, whatever, and where, more importantly, where the wastewater goes. And I'm a sewer Fitchburg. We don't process any in town. It provides cost estimates for the areas not yet sewered that are total cost and then determined cost for the betterments, essentially. And it also provides a 20-year look ahead in terms of capacity needs for the town. So all very important things that we need to keep up to date. So in this document, the changes, the first major change is in the infrastructure plan. It reflects that we will, going forward, we will take all of the future flows when new services is added. We will take them to Leominster, whereas the original plan had some of the areas, particularly the area near White Street and the area up between Chase Road and 2A, the Beale Street area, were going to be directed to Fitchburg. This plan now redirects all of that to Leominster. And two reasons. One is when we recently had to buy capacity from Fitchburg because we didn't have enough for our current sewer users and we didn't have enough for extensions. The cost to upgrade the Fitchburg Highway was part of it, and the more capacity we needed, the bigger percentage of that cost we had to pay. So there was a big upfront capital cost depending on the amount of capacity. The other piece of the decision was that the Fitchburg rates, wastewater we send to Fitchburg, it costs us about 60% more to have Fitchburg process it than Leominster. So there are two significant financial reasons that we moved away from the plan in this update. So it is consistent. We do have a new IMA in Fitchburg, and this plan is consistent with that. As a matter of fact, this plan with the projections out through 2036 capacity needs, we would need no more capacity from Fitchburg. So all the way out for 20 years, we're good with the current IMA in Fitchburg. Some other areas that are important. The next most important area is the cost estimates. As you can imagine, in the 6 years that have passed, the cost estimates in the original publication have grown. And it was important because we use those when a certain area comes is interested in sewer. The first place they always want to start, and they all start with, well, what's the projected cost? But without spending engineering, which nobody wants to spend at that time, all we have is to go to this document. So it's important that document be up to date. So that was a very important part of this evaluation. So all of the cost estimates we brought up to date, they've included not only the best judgment of the engineers and the engineering firm, Wright Pierce, who did the original proposal, has done these updates. They also incorporated as a sanity check the cost of the betterments that are in process. So these cost estimates are consistent with actual costs that we're incurring today in town. So as a result of that, a portion of the costs did go up. They range, depending on the area, from $19,000 for a betterment to as much as $60,000 perhaps for a betterment. And that's before the costs to homeowners, which would be the connection charges and any piping on their land and pressure pumps are required. Those costs could range from $11,000 to $16,000 for the residents. The average cost of the betterments in this proposal is $35,000 for a betterment going forward. One last thing, some other changes we've updated. It reflects the current policy, which was not clear in the original document, that homeowners, if it's a low pressure system, that the homeowners would be responsible for those costs located on their property. They own the equipment, so they would be responsible. So we want to clarify that. It also updates the inflow and infiltration estimates. so that we have a good handle of where we are, where we need to be, and where we need to be working hard. And that's a primary area, as you heard earlier today. And it also updates a 20-year capacity projection. So it looks at the worst case. It assumes that all of the sewer service areas are built out, they're all sewered, and that 100% of the people along those lines connect. So two pretty unrealistic assumptions, but it's the worst case. Even given that worst case, as I said, the results show that our Fitchburg IMA, we have enough capacity for Fitchburg. The Leominster IMA, we would be short. We right now have a 500,000 gallon allotment, so to speak, to Central Leominster. This projection would say if all of those things happen by 2036, we'd need close to 800,000. But just as a sanity check today, we are at about 130,000. So we have quite a ways to go before we can get to the 500,000. So, and again, that's an assumption that everybody's connected, everybody's sewer. And my gut tells me that $60,000 of betterment that probably won't happen. So, I think that's.
Questions for Mr. Luck, sir?
Mr. Luck, yes, Dave Brock, New 733 West Street. You say, or one of your slides reads, full pavement overlay in betterment, is included betterment. Is that the full road or just the areas that you are disturbing?
Thank you for bringing that up. I clearly skipped that point on the graph. Yeah, that was one of the assumptions that wasn't in the original cost estimates. It did not assume full overlay. Our recent experience with the betterment's ongoing. It turns out that a full overlay is required. To answer the question, the full overlay is the full street, the full width of the street, not just the trench. So those are in here. And I think that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Moderator, through you to Mr. Luck. I didn't see any mention of the cost to reverse the flow of sewerage from Fitchburg to Leominster. What is the best estimate? And who will pay for it?
If we start to get close to these estimates, if everyone builds out and somewhere in the future we get close to using the Fitchburg capacity, which is we're using less than half of what we have allocated now. There would be, I forget the exact number, I think it's around $4 million, pretty substantial number, around $4 million, to reroute some of the capacity that's already going to Fitchburg and reroute that up Electric Ave to Leominster. That $4 million would be part of a capital plan, and would certainly be financed over time. And part of the payback of that would be this cost differential between sending additional storage to Fitchburg, so that 60% adder we've saved, plus what we've already saved to take the bank by not having to pay more of the Johnson Highway expenses.
So what you just said was that the change over from sending sewer to Fitchburg will not happen immediately, but rather you'll wait till you hit the capacity and then you'll switch it over?
Well, clearly before we hit it. But we certainly see it coming. The good thing about hitting that capacity, the good thing about this business is, as similar to yours probably, that there's quite a lag between when a need is identified and when the pipe is in the ground.
Yeah.
So at least a 2-year advance warning. So at that time, when we see, we know very well what we're sending. We know, what the new betterment would take. So we'll see well in advance that that we can start pushing at that capacity.
Will the cost for the reverse, so-called, be borne by those that currently have sewer being sent to Leominster?
That would be a question that would have to be answered at the time by the commission. There's no detailed discussion on exactly how those costs would be allocated. One possibility would be the straight capital, that it would be spread over all the users. Just like the differential in cost of sending wastewater to Fitchburg is one of all the users, not just the users that send their wastewater to Fitchburg. There's only one rate, as a blended rate.
Okay, the last question is this. You did mention about privilege fees. You mentioned about betterments, but not privilege fees.
Do you have a question about privilege fees?
Yeah, what will they be?
Privilege fees are defined as the amount of money that the last betterment paid.
Okay, so whatever that last betterment paid is anybody that wants to tie on to pay that rate plus the betterment rate as well. So that
If anyone is in a sewer, in an area that's already been sewered,
yes.
so there's sewer available, but somehow they managed to not pay a betterment to begin with.
Yeah.
Say a lot was divided,
Yeah.
and they only paid one betterment, but now they've got a new lot that never paid a betterment. Then before they connect, they have to pay a privilege fee. That privilege fee would be the amount equal to the last betterment.
And if they did pay a betterment fee, they still, and they wanted to tie on, they'd have to pay again the latest betterment fee to tie on.
Absolutely not.
Well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I guess so. So if you didn't pay a betterment fee, and you're connecting to an existing line that everyone around you paid a betterment fee for, then it's your turn to contribute to and pay a betterment fee.
Got it.
A privilege fee, right? So if you didn't pay a betterment, and you're connecting to the sewer line that went in front of your house, then you have to pay a betterment. If you didn't pay it, you have to pay a privilege because you didn't pay a betterment.
What about if you paid a betterment?
Then you pay it, and you don't pay anything else.
You don't have to pay a privilege fee.
Absolutely not.
Okay, thanks.
Seeing no one else at the microphone, it's ready to vote on Article 35. Barry, yep.
Yeah, Barry Jewell, 20 cents a minute. I just was curious about the updated costs. How much have these costs gone up in the last 6 years? Do you remember the other numbers? Because I think there was some confusion. Some people were surprised that their costs recently were so high. And these are high numbers, I guess. I'm just curious, was that because Metcalf and Eddy or whoever did the previous study didn't estimate them correctly, or?
No, not at all. Right page did that, the prior end is one. The cost issue you're referring to is with the existing betterments, where the cost estimates were taken from the prior report. So we're old to begin with, but in fact, in those specific cases, this way everything is unique, but in the specific cases of the betterments we are now doing, the actual costs are going to come in less than what was advertised to the owners and was in the comprehensive wastewater. So, an example, one of the areas that went up is the area between 2A and Chase Road, and that went up somewhat, but and that's a $60,000 number. In the original one, I think it was about $50,000. So, if things didn't double, that area is suffering from a large area that's sandwiched between two state highways, so the cost in doing work in those highways is much more. And there are very few houses. The density in that area is very low. So that's what's driving that crazy $60,000. Most of the other areas, about $35,000. Our current betterments were more advertised or believed to be in the $25,000 to $27,000. They're going to come in closer to $20,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Selectmen, your recommendation?
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance?
We recommend approval.
Anyone else on 35? We're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 35, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Stay right there, Mr. Luck. Number 36, Article 36.
Last one, if you have to. I move that the town vote to amend Article 24 of the town bylaws entitled Sewer Bylaw by adding Section 9, Regulation Changes. Such revision is currently on file in the office of the town clerk, board of selectmen, and sewer commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectmen, your recommendation?
Selectmen will make recommendation at the town meeting after the presentation.
Finance?
We'll make our recommendation after the presentation.
Okay, Mr. Luck, you're up.
So this is a change to the bylaw, which is why we come to town meeting. to get this made, and it's an addition of a paragraph. There's no other changes to the existing bylaws, it's an addition of a new paragraph. And it addresses a regulation change procedure. It adds a regulation change procedure to the bylaw. Regulations are extremely important, and changes can have significant impact on homeowners. They can affect the value of their property, their taxes, they can have just tremendous effects. And it's, we see it, as a matter of fact, we, the Sewer Commission, have worked jointly with the Conservation Commission because we both saw this gap in terms of transparency to the town. So you will see another very similar change a little bit later in the town meeting. So what we want to do basically is two things. One is make sure that the town is, we'll make every effort of the town being aware that there is a change to a regulation coming. And hopefully they will participate in that change, in that discussion. In order to do that, we are implementing this procedure in the bylaws, and we're doing it in the bylaws so that that procedure would need to come back to town meeting to get changed. So if a future commission thinks this is being do all this notification and hearings, they have to come back and do this to town in order to get rid of that. That's really the key essence. The change itself, there is a handout. That's okay. I can explain the change. Basically, what it requires is that once the Sewer Commission has discussed a potential change to regulations, then a public hearing is called, which is not a requirement today. There is no requirement for any public hearing. And the public hearing would be actually in two phases. Both hearings would be required to be televised. Which means they're both recorded and anybody can listen to them and watch them at their leisure or come to them. And those hearings have to be advertised at least 5 working days before the meeting, have to be put in the local paper that those hearings are occurring. So besides the normal open meeting posting. Once the hearing is closed, then the regulation would be deliberated and finalized, and would be whatever the process for that commission would be. The Sewer Commission, we would advertise the change in the paper, and then that would be, that's when it would become effective.
Anyone on Article 36? Declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Oh, I didn't ask Select and Finance. Oh, I knew I'd forget that.
We recommend it.
I think you did. Finance?
We see no direct impact.
Oh, thank goodness you saved it. I must be in a rush. Article 37, that's a planning board article.
Mr. Moderator, in regards to Article 37, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw table of contents by deleting the words development plan review and inserting the words site plan approval.
Second. There's a second. Select on your recommendation.
We recommend approval.
Finance?
We'll wait to see the presentation and make our recommendation.
I hope I don't forget again. Go ahead. Mr. Vernon?
Good evening, or good afternoon. I'm used to keeping you here at night.
Can everyone hear me if I don't hold it?
Sure. No. I talk with my hands, so I'm doing this. This is a simple.
Well, who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Adam Burton, land use director here in town. This Article 37 is a simple word change in the table of contents. The planning board later in Article 40 is proposing to delete and replace section 8.4, so this would be just the verbiage change for that. Within the table of contents only. So it's changing 3 words for 3 other words.
Declare we're ready to vote. Oh, I didn't get finance.
No direct impact.
Yep. Planning board, what was your recommendation?
Planning board recommended it in favor of.
Okay, you gotta tell us the number.
It's 5-0.
Finance, Select the major recommendation. Okay. All those in favor of Article 37? Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, Brian Markle, for Lancaster Avenue. Could you explain the significance between the two and why you're doing this?
Well, that would being done under section under Article 40. So if you'd like me to give my Article 40 presentation, I can do that. But I think there might be.
Well, it sounds like you've got it backwards, then you should have done Article 40 before 37.
Well, if we're going to get technical, I wasn't the one who developed the power.
And he works for the town.
So, the quick and dirty of it is, currently we have a development plan review. This is a non-binding recommendation with no finality to the process. The proposed article is a site plan approval, which is a binding approval by the planning board on, as you'll see, as is listed in the article, projects that meet thresholds, that has the ability for the board to approve with conditions, or deny a project based on an objective set of metrics. Currently, it's an undefined number of items that are reviewed. The current proposed change outlines the items the board currently reviews through that process, but is in nowhere written on paper. So what we've done is we've formalized the pros of the bylaw to match the general process that we're currently following, and to give the board more finality and definition of the process.
Article 37. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 38.
In regards to Article 38, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw, section 3.0, establishment of districts, 3.1, type of districts, by deleting the word 14 and inserting the word 15.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval?
Finance.
We see no direct impact.
Planning board, your recommendation.
Planning board recommends in favor, 5-0.
Thank you. You're going to explain, Mr. President?
This is a cleanup from the previous annual town meeting. The town meeting passed the village center district. We were thoughtful enough to include it in the districts. We missed this one, 14, so now there's 15 districts legally, and this is, again, it's a strictness cleanup.
Jim Levesque, here with Castor Avenue. Also last year, we approved the Architectural Preservation District.
That is a general bylaw, not a zoning district. So it is not a zoning district. The architectural preservation is not within the zoning bylaw, or in Lunenburg known as the protective bylaw. It is within the general bylaw. It is a district, but it is not included as a zoning article. You can have, there's multiple zoning districts within the architectural preservation district. So it's governing the buildings itself within the general bylaw. So if anything, it would be considered an overlay district, but not within the protective bylaw.
Okay, that wasn't clear.
Ready to vote on Article 38? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. 39.
I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw, section 6.0, general provisions affecting all districts by deleting sections 6.1.2, design of off-street parking and loading spaces, and 6.4.3, design requirements, and adding a new section 6.4.3, off-street parking design standards. And this would be as it relates to the handout that was up front. There were a few minor changes to pick up the concerns of the select.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, you have a recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance.
We'll wait to see the presentation and make our recommendation.
And planning.
Planning voted 5-0 in favor. So the current sections that are being deleted are what govern the design of parking within the town currently. They use non-standard and somewhat archaic design criteria, such as a parking space is 300 square feet inclusive of the parking stall and the travel aisle. They don't speak to landscaping, access loading in a way that matches contemporary planning standards. So what the board has done is they've gone through and looked to clean up the language to be more specific and to give people looking to do development within town a very clear standard of what the requirements will be for the installation of driveways and parking facilities. You'll find that the majority of what's in here will affect commercial projects much more than it will any residential project. I will draw your attention to 3 changes that came about and are, again, outlined in the handout, outlined in red, so they are nice and easy to find.
Are they correct on board?
They are not correct on the, well, it's not up on the board. It's language changes within what was printed in the warrant.
Make sure you point out so people know exactly what they're voting.
On page 1 of the handout, which would be on page 13 of your warrant, section C2 has been deleted, so you can park in your front yard all you'd like. That includes some renumbering of the particles following under that section. That is simply a formatting change. Then we move on to section D. In the handout, it is on page 2. In your warrant, it is also on page 13. Under 3A, it states a condition for some landscaping abutting residential. There is an addition of serving multifamily and non-residential uses. This is to clean up any concern that you would have to put a hedgerow next to your driveway so that your neighbors couldn't see the lights. The implication and the idea when the planning board developed this was to prevent, in areas where there are multifamily or non-residential uses adjacent to residential, the impact of constant traffic. We will find that, you'll see that in the coming decade in the village area, as well as some areas along Mass Ave, and probably extending down into the Whalen area along Electric and some of those adjacent. And the final change is on page 5 of the handout. It is on page 15 of your warrant. Under number 7, surfacing and drainage, the original proposal that the planning board looked at required a durable, dustless, all-weather surface on all driveways and parking areas. This remains for all multifamily residential, which is 3 or more, and all commercial or non-residential uses. In residential uses, this applies to the area from the edge of pavement to 12 feet within the property line. So it mirrors what is currently in the section 6.4.3.
That?
That's right.
This is the handout.
That is the handout.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, Lisa Crowitz, 95 Stone Road. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. It's really extensive, but I have a few things that I'd like to address. Unfortunately, I don't know the original text, so that would have been nice to see what the changes were in comparison. So if I'm repeating something that's in there, I apologize. First of all, under location, section A,
Yes.
where you said shared parking and loading areas are only be used for loading prior to opening or after closing of all uses located on the site in question. It seems to me that this should be up to the user in some regards, because it sounds like you'll have the loading when you're closed, so that's sort of morning when it's quiet time, and in the evening when you're closed, versus if they want to do it during the day where it makes more sense. I understand you're trying to protect the parking spots. I believe that's the intent. It just seems like that it's too restrictive.
It's a safety issue. So shared parking and loading would be, generally when commercial sites develop, they develop a loading area. a bay or someplace where the trucks can park or pull around back. This would be in the instance where they're designating a portion of their parking area as loading. So if they're designating that as loading and they're using it during the day consistently as loading, then those can't be counted on as parking spaces. And the board would thus then be endorsing a situation that creates a safety hazard for patrons or employees that have to be there using those parking areas.
So, for instance, Zetas in town, their loading area, I assume, has employee parking. So they can't use that space if they need to unload while people are working there. That just seems like a restriction that's not necessary. I understand the safety concern, but I think there's ways around the safety concern without having it sort of set in stone here to mandate when things can be used and can't be used.
Mr. Moderator, the speaker is using an example of a new facility downtown. Their parking area is not actually designated as loading. The spaces in the loading zone are both accessible while they're individually being used. The difference would be if there was no way to access the loading dock other than through the parking spaces and having the trucks be on those parking spaces. And the suggestion that the town is trying to dictate the operation of businesses is entirely correct. That's part of the purpose of zoning, is to ensure for the public safety and good. It's not, this is why we put these things in writing, so that it's not a negotiation when they come to the planning board. And this specific section came out of a meeting we recently had with a business looking to locate in town, who was proposing a very similar use. They had a very tight, restrictive site. Their parking area was as minimal as they could legally have it. And if they were to use the parking area as the loading area during business hours, it would create an incredible backup on a busy street and a potential safety hazard. So that's why we put these things in writing. That's why we make them part of the bylaw. There is the ability for someone to seek approval of variance from this, but this also gives people upfront very clear definition of what the expectations are and what the rules.
Driveway is more likely more than 12%, and is this restricted to growth in the town for a property on, say, on Mormon Hill?
Well, it would allow for the development of those properties should they be able to meet the grade. It is 12% for all driveways. I think that within the last month, when we had that random snowstorm, there was an issue with an oil truck that went up one of these driveways that exceeds 12%. He got about halfway up and he went back about halfway down. And it caused a turnover of the oil truck. If we want to get firefighting equipment, ambulances up driveways, you want to provide them with the easiest, most accessible way. This is something, again, that should someone have a desire to have a driveway in excess of that, they can seek relief through the zoning board. Everything within the protective bylaw is open to relief through the zoning board through a variety of processes. So this is, again, looking to keep grades at 12% for access for public safety. I think with commercial, it would be much less likely that it would get a waiver. I think with residential, if your entire driveway were 20%, they may be less likely to say, yeah, go ahead and do that. If portions of the driveway exceed the 12% for certain runs, it's intended, again, to provide safe and adequate access both for the homeowners and for public safety.
So I completely again understand, but I think it's a little bit of an overstep. So I would like to see that included in your exception part under number 10. To have, and also number 5. Again, number 5, I completely understand is totally a safety issue. People who have driveways where you need to back out, it makes more sense to back into your driveway at the time of parking. However, I feel that again, number 4 and 5 should be exceptions to residential properties. And I'd like to see that feel for a developer that might be an issue, especially if you have a building property.
I'll be honest with the speaker, Mr. Moderator, that my experience is developers are less likely to find issue with that if they know about it ahead of time. My feeling is it would be more of an issue for an individual property owner looking to develop a single home.
Exactly. Sorry, that's what I meant.
And I think that, again, there are opportunities. If the amendment is proposed, we'll go along with it. I personally would be opposed to it. I think that zoning is a home rule petition. The purpose of zoning is for placement of rules that reasonably regulate the use of property to ensure health and safety for both the property owner and those around. The 12% grade, again, having, most of us in town live with oil heat, having grades greater than 12%, having an oil truck try to deliver anytime between October and April can create a significant environmental and safety hazard for not only the property owner, but anybody who has a well or any environment, wetland or otherwise in that area. So I think that's, again, part of the reason that we looked at 12%.
Again, I appreciate that. Is that like a standard? Because, you know, there
It
are
is.
some.
It's well within what most communities use as a standard. In most subdivision regulations where you go to use for the development of road, 8% is about the maximum grade. So adding that extra 4% for residential driveways is well within the industry's standards.
I'm still opposed, I still think it should be amended in the amendment, but I understand. Let's see.
One last thing, young lady. So,
there are so many.
I'm not telling you you cut off. What I'm saying to you is this. You can't just say at town meeting, I'd like to see something change, okay?
Oh, right, so I will just say, can you amend it?
Hold on, I didn't finish, okay? What you say is, I would make an amendment, okay? And then somebody says I would second, and then we debate amendment. If you want to have a conversation with the planning board, and I would encourage you to do it, I encourage you to run for planning board. But when you want to have a conversation with the planning board about these things, really the proper forum is to go to the planning board's meeting and address these things one at a time. So, I mean, please feel free to ask questions. But just understand, functionally, that's the way that has to be done.
I completely understand.
All right.
Okay, so then I propose an amendment to number 10, I don't know how you get to that, where you have the exceptions for one-family homes. 1 or 2 family.
Write down exactly what you say, okay? So write, I know it's hard. So write exactly where it is, what section, and then you have to see if anybody seconds it, and then we'll debate your amendment.
Okay, so you want me to, it's going to take longer than it would to ask the questions, but okay. So the exceptions for one family.
Why don't you write for a second? Let's let the gentleman write behind you speak, and then you can come up and so that we all done exactly the way you want, okay?
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Dave Crockett, 733 West Street, member of the planning board. Just wanted to remind people that we are reviewing the protective bylaw on an ongoing basis right now, and we do dedicate time at the end of each session, usually, to go over certain sections of the bylaw. And we encourage anyone who's interested to come out and participate in that with us.
And that's what I wanted to say. People come to the meeting that aren't familiar with the process. People come up and say, I'd like to see something different. And that's fine, that's great. But you do it formally by saying, I make an amendment. Find somebody to second. Then we vote on the amendment. Mr. Jewell.
Yes, per rule 20 cents anyway. Just, I do admit that the 12% does sound, kind of onerous to me. Is that just for new construction though?
Yes, with, Mr. Moderator, with zoning bylaws, we do not retroactively require compliance. That would be for any new construction, or if someone were to install a second or new driveway, it would be required to meet under the So if you currently have a driveway that's 40%, we're not gonna come knock on your door and say you need to fix it.
It does seem that many roads around town are steeper than that, but maybe I'm mistaken. Jeff would know better than anyone, but it seems like there are many hills in town steeper than 12% grade.
And again, I would agree with you, and I think that often roads were developed, many years ago when they took the straightest, easiest path, or the path that was already worn down, and they were formalizing it. And, I think going forward over the past 20 or 30 years, communities have worked very hard to standardize their road construction practices, and planning boards especially have looked to be specific about their requirements.
Excellent. Any other comments, articles while she's writing on 39? I want to ask Mr. McQuaid while she's writing, before we get to amendments, just to clarify the record, that you are moving Article 39 as printed in a handout with red lines that are taking out material and added red material to the article.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, thank you for clarifying the motion.
Okay. And that is seconded by the select board, and finance is still thinking.
Actually, we confer, we see no directly.
Excellent. Okay. Now we have the actual article as it should be at the town clerk's temporary office here at the auditorium. How we doing, young lady?
They'll be notarized.
Well, it's important that people feel that they can come to meetings and influence, what goes on in town. Very important. It's the purest form of democracy to be able to come and influence your town. So read what you've written and then see if someone will second.
I, Lisa Pruitt, do hereby move that Article 39, I'm going to get to item 10, your exception items, be amended as such. Exception for one-family or two-family dwelling, the provisions of 6.4.3B, items 4 and 5, 6.4.3, item C, items 1 and 2, so those are being added. And then 6.4.3E, 4, 5, and 6, those are currently a re-enter statement. And section 6.4.3, item 7A, that would be added with regard, and then the rest of your statement is the same. If that makes sense. Probably not. That's good. Let me write this down.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, thank you.
We spend a lot of time listening to you, right? All right. Okay.
My concerns are for the single-family homeowner and somebody who has a piece of property and has the opportunity to split it and would like to build on it. These requirements seem a little bit certain. And in full closure, my dad used to be a builder in town.
Excellent. So you wrote it, I think it needs a smidge of clarification, that there be an exception for one-family and two-family dwellings.
Well, the statement is exception for one family or two family dwellings and the provisions of, and I'm just adding in extra ones, that's all. I'm adding in for section B, making it 4 and 5.
Okay.
Add in C 1 and 2, and add in item number 7A, where it talks about having to pave your driveway within 12 feet from the edge of the community. I used to always have gravel, so it seems to me if somebody wants to be more environmentally sound, they should have the ability not to pave their driveway. If that's what this statement is, I'm not sure.
Mr. Moderator, I would clarify that the statement says a durable, dustless, all-weather surface.
Okay,
It's
so if
not-
I wanted to use, say ground out gravel.
Three-quarter inch crushed stone would be considered durable, dustless, all-weather.
Okay, then you can take that one out. Sorry. Oh, do I amend that?
In the second, Mr. Rogers has to agree.
Changes were. So just to add three pieces, to add item number 4 from section B and both 1 and 2 from section C.
Greg Bittner, 129 Pleasant Street. I'm also a member of the planning board. I'd just like to point out the fact that in regards to the steep grades, there is relief through the ZBA, so they would have opportunity to develop that site if they so choose to split it. It just would not make any and all driveways of that nature exempt.
Mr. Byrne.
Mr. Moderator, the waivers for section C, 1 and 2, which would say each parking space or driveway serving a 1 or 2 family dwelling shall be set back 5 feet from any side lot line or rear lot line, with the exception of common driveways, and shall be designated on the plan. I am unclear how we would, for 1 and 2 family properties, waive setbacks specifically for 1 and 2 family properties. And then on section 2, the paved parts of parking spaces, driveways, and maneuvering aisles shall be set back from any wall of a principal building and from any lot line or zoning boundary line as indicated in the following table within the residential zones in the village center district. The setback is nothing from the district line. It is also from 5 feet from a principal building. Again, this was done as a safety issue, and it would essentially alter that section, and the board would have to come back and review it and probably propose an amendment the next time again.
On the amendment.
Patrick Sullivan, 197 Reservoir Road, Fire Chief in town. I would respectfully submit to vote against this. The 12% rule is there. It is a safety, most definitely a safety issue. There are several driveways in town that were built prior to this that we can barely access with fire apparatus now. The case that the planning director spoke to did involve a truck that tried to go up in snow, lost control, rolled over, and we almost lost 1,800 gallons of fuel in the watershed area. Fortunately, it held. But it is a legitimate public safety issue, at least for the fire department, that some of these very steep driveways, especially with a small amount of snow, we cannot access them with fire apparatus. And while it's easy to say it's not a concern now, for someone who's in that house that's expecting a fire truck or an ambulance to get there, and we can't get in there, it most definitely is an issue. Thank you.
Nobody else on the amendment? Let's vote on the amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The amendment is defeated. The article is now before you. Anybody else on the article? Seeing no one at the microphone, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 39, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Passes by more than 2/3. Article 40.
Moderator, in regards to Article 40, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw, section 8.4, development plan review, by deleting the entirety of the existing ordinance and inserting a new section 8.4, site plan approval.
Is that new section on file with the town clerk?
Yes,
it is. So, as on file with the town clerk.
And as printed in the warrant.
And as printed in the warrant. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Select.
We'll make a recommendation after the presentation.
Reminder. FinCom.
We see no direct financial impact.
Okay. Mr. Bernie, you still up?
I am.
Okay.
So,
planning board, you can vote.
Planning board voted 5-0 in favor.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did outline earlier, this article is taking the current development plan review and formalizing it into a structured approval following a similar legal path as the special permit. So it requires advertising, it's a public hearing, it requires a final decision by the board that then becomes enforceable by the building inspector. The projects that qualify for this are not your single-family homes. These would be new commercial developments, expansions on parking, major multifamily residential that is outside of comprehensive permits. So what this does is it gives the board the ability to look at items outlined under section 8.4.5. They're called the standards for site plan review, and it gives them objective items with which to review the proposals and which to hold developers and designers to a consistent standard across the board. Currently, we don't have a consistent standard outlined. While the board works to keep consistency among developments, this will formalize it. It will allow people to know prior to showing up to the planning board what the expectations are. The town has talked extensively about economic development. From my experience and my professional opinion, this is the first step to economic development. Creating an explicit written standard for what development review looks like and is expected, and what is expected of an applicant. Specific sections in the public good, depending on the development. Generally, on new developments, those waivers are going to be minimal. We have a number of small commercial areas or buildings that currently sit vacant. I know that when I spoke with the selectmen about this, there was some concern about an imposition of all new regulations on existing sites for change of use or for reoccupation of a building. The board has, again, reassured the public and the selectmen that they want to work with applicants to reuse those buildings in their proposed regulations. They have added a section in the waivers giving due consideration to existing conditions with the exception of safety-related issues. So if someone has a driveway 10 feet from a side road, they may look to have them move that to the other end of the property. But if the lights or the parking spaces are a little bit off from what's required, and there's no other proposed changes to construction, the board has given their assurances and put in writing that they will give due consideration to those items. I don't want to go on too long because there's a lot in here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't see anyone at the microphone, Mr. Bernie, so you don't get a chance to answer questions.
All right.
All those in favor of Article 40, please, oh, wait a minute, I had to get a selectman's recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Okay. All those in favor of Article 40, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, passes by more than 2/3. Article 41. Mr. Mendoza here.
I don't see Mr. Mendoza here, so I'll move this. I move to pass over Article 41.
Is there a second? Second. Tell us why we're passing it over?
I don't think the Agricultural Commission had the final wording in place to come forward with this article.
No. All those in favor of passing over Article 41, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's passed over. Article 42. Lanny, you're back.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town by revising section 32 entitled Architectural Preservation District as printed in the warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Selectman, your recommendation?
We'll make the recommendation after the presentation.
You'll kind of remind me, finance?
We see no direct financial impact.
Okay. As printed in the warrant. Who's going to address this?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I will be. I took it upon myself as a result of unofficial liaison to the Architectural Preservation District Committee to make proposed technical changes to the bylaw. For those who were not here last year, there was quite a bit of work done in the 6 months prior to town meeting to come up with a village district zoning bylaw and the preservation district in the general bylaws. Some properties were in, some properties were out. We had 2 maps. There were amendments made on the floor. Some of the amendments ended up getting into the written language and not the number language. The map was, ended up including the historic district map instead of the combination of the historic district map and the preservation district map. So what is in the warrant are merely technical changes to reflect what was voted, and the map was cleaned up to be just the map that was voted as the combination of the 2 maps originally with the corrected titles. There are no substantial changes other than these technicals.
And there was a handout, and it's printed in small print in the warrant. Anyone questions on 42? Reading right along, you want to go home? All those in favor of Article 42? Did we get all everybody's recommendations? Selectmen? Recommend approval. All those in favor of Article 42, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous. 43.
Mr. Moderator, I would move the town will vote to amend general bylaws and general wetlands bylaw 21, making the following additions and changes, and take any other actions thereto.
That's not exactly what was written in the article.
Let's read what's on the law.
Read it.
I move the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town section 21, general wetlands bylaw as printed on the warrant, printed in the warrant.
Second.
Selectmen, your recommendation?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance?
We see no direct financial impact.
Okay. Now,
Okay, in the interest of time, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to just primarily speak to the changes and the strikeouts.
correct.
Okay. In section 2, jurisdiction, add the following sentences to the section. Lands within 100 feet of aforesaid resource areas and within 200 feet of rivers or perennial streams located within the corporate boundary of Lunenburg shall be protected regardless of the location of the wetlands with respect to the municipal corporate boundary. What that means is essentially, if there's a wetland that's sitting right in the town boundary, it's outside of our town, we would honor that wetland and apply the wetland laws. Section 5, we would remove RFD and add RDA. And essentially, in order to, the Wetlands Protection Act, they changed the verbology. We're now coming back and we're aligning with them. Previously, RFD meant request for determination, and RDA is now request for determination of applicability. It better fits what we're really doing. In that same section, we would also, the following page, we would remove RFD and add RDA. The last paragraph in that section, we would add, with the applicant's consent or guaranteed or granted verbally on the record during the course of the public hearing or meeting. Essentially, what we're doing is we're now allowing, if the applicant is not satisfied, rather than forcing a decision, we can ask him if he would like to continue the meeting before, and he now has the right to ask for a continuance of the meeting versus it being shut down. We're trying to be more sensitive to the applicants. On section 6, essentially, we would ask that you remove the Wetlands Protection Permit and Wetlands Protection Act permit, just the Wetlands Protection Act piece. And we can, Mr. Moderator, add the word land in place of, does that require an amendment?
You're going to have to put it in writing, and we're going to make sure that it really should be done by amendment.
Okay.
Adding the word.
If we could, Mr. Moderator, within that Wetlands Protection Act.
Tell people again what section you're at so they know where
Okay.
to follow.
Section 6, coordination with other boards. Any person filling a Wetlands Protection Act permit application, if you notice Wetlands Protection Act is now scratched out, and we would ask for the word land, the Wetland Protection Act. And again, we also remove RFD and RDA. I should probably read the rest. But the commission shall provide written notice therein at the same time by certified mail or hand delivery to the board of selectmen, planning board, zoning board, and appeals board. What we're asking is that there are other applications that are starting to affect, and we'd be asked to be part of that review. The committee shall not take final action until such boards and officials have had 14 days from the receipt of the notice to file written comments and recommendations with the commission, which the commission shall take into account, but which shall not be binding on the commission. We've had instances in which other boards have made decisions, and our permits have expired, yet we're being held to other prior boards' recommendations. So we're asking that rather than being just wetlands protection, it just becomes a land permit. Essentially, if you get a 3-year approval and you need to, the project for get the funding reasons or whatever, have now requiring asking to come back rather than each additional year and paying an additional funding application, essentially will allow you to go 3 more years. Doesn't mean necessarily you get the automatic approval, it just means that you don't have to pay anything anymore. We're trying to again make it easier for the people. Section 8, add the following paragraph. The Conservation Commission will establish a draft of proposed changes during regular, properly posted open meetings. Once there is a consensus on the proposed changes, a formal hearing will be scheduled and will take place over 2 regular scheduled meetings. Both hearings will be televised. A notice of hearing will be put in a local newspaper, and at least, currently it says 10 working days. We'd like to amend that to 5 business days prior to the hearing dates. At the discretion of the Conservation Commission, the hearing may be continued to the next consecutive open, regularly scheduled meeting. Once the hearing is closed, the final changes will be drafted and voted on. The proposed and approved changes will be posted on the Commission's website. So essentially, what we're attempting to do here is that allowing, I'm sorry, don't blank. I just shorted it up. I'm going to turn myself in now. Okay.
Mr. Moderator, perhaps while the speaker is collecting his thoughts, I just want to make sure I heard correctly. So what's printed in the warrant refers to at least 10 business days.
That's correct.
But did I hear you say?
We would like to move it to 5, only because of the logistics associated with pushing it out.
That's another amendment.
I have concerns with the insertion of the word land permit. I'm not aware of any type of permit issued by the town of Lunenburg that's called a land permit. So I would question why you would insert the word land and rather than having it read any person filing a permit application. Sorry, Lisa Kurlitz on 95 Stonefence Road. I used to be on the Library Board of Trustees and the open meeting law. I just want to make sure that you're covered. So you say here, this is under the one you just amended with the 5 days.
That's correct.
You say at the discretion of the Conservation Commission, the hearing may be continued to the next consecutive open regularly scheduled meeting. Do you still have to have 5 business days to put that notice in, or is at the discretion allowing you not to have to notify again?
It would be part of a continuance with regard to the open items that's carried over from prior meetings.
Okay.
So therefore, it would be the intent to carry on that conversation following 2 weeks, roughly meets every 2 weeks. So. Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have to go back out and state that you're having a continuation, because that's happened a lot in the library where we continue and always have to put it out there. So I'm just trying to make sure it's covered.
That's correct. It would take forever to get there.
Just
just to further clarify, the intent with the same basically the sewer commission regulation is that it wouldn't be required to be televised either. Projected to be televised, well posted hearings, it was felt that it wasn't necessary to delay the process anymore.
We're ready to vote on Article 43. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. One last article, since we passed over 35. Article 44 is a citizen's petition. So again, this is the way that you participate. You want to talk to the town, you want to make some changes in town, get your own petition together and get it before the body. Taking a straw vote. So young lady, tell us about the purpose behind taking a straw vote, what it is you're trying to follow.
Well, the Dunn Road facility is open only approximately 4 Saturdays in the spring and again in the fall. Now, if you don't have a means of transporting your 4 to 5 months accumulation of waste management services, I got 3 quotes back. The cheapest one came in from our current contractor with Casella Waste Services. That was about, I believe it was, let's see, total of $82,000. That, amongst all the residents, would equate to $20 annually. $20, that's it. $20 can get your weekends back, not have to deal with hauling your stuff down to the Youngsburg location. And in many cases, like myself, trying to finagle my schedule, my brother's schedule, just to borrow his truck. I've already been asked, how long is this going to continue for? And I don't have the funds to go buy a truck because the town of Lunenburg doesn't provide waste service pickup, while many other communities do.
And all those that think they probably would never want to see the service. 60-40, all right? There you go. So that's our straw vote. We have included all the articles that are before the town meeting, and I declare that we are dissolved. Thank you all. Thank you for sticking in. Thank you.